We had previously clung to a desperate alternative and insisted, each to himself, that the omnipresence of the five-pointed motive meant only that some cultural or religious exaltation of the Arcanian natural object which had so patently embodied the quality of the five-pointedness. As the decorative motives of Minoan Crete exalted the sacred bull, those of Egypt the scarabaeus, those of Rome the wolf and eagle, and those of the various savage tribes known some chosen totem animal. But this lone refuge was now stripped from us, and we forced to face definitively the reason-shaking realization which the reader of these pages has doubtless long ago anticipated. I can scarcely bear to write it down in black and white even now, but perhaps that will not be necessary. Things once rearing and dwelling in this frightful masonry in the age of dinosaurs were not indeed dinosaurs, but far worse. Mere dinosaurs were new and almost brainless objects, but the builders of this city were wise and old. And left certain traces in rocks even then laid down well nigh 1,000 million years ago. Rocks laid down before the true life of the Earth had advanced beyond plastic groups of cells. Rocks laid down before the truth of Earth had existed at all. They were the makers and enslavers of that life, and above all doubt the originals of the fiendish elder myths, which things like the Nakadic manuscripts in the Necronomicon are frighteningly hint about. They were the great old ones that had filtered down from the stars when Earth was young, the beings whose substance an alien evolution had shaped, and whose powers were such as this planet had never bred. And to think that only the day before Danforth and I had actually looked upon fragments of their millennially fossilized substance, and that poor Lake and his party had seen their complete outlines. It is of course impossible for me to relate in proper order the stages by which we picked up what we know of that monstrous chapter of pre-human life. After the first shock of this certain revelation, we had to pause a while to recuperate, and it was fully 3 o'clock before we started on our actual tour of systematic research. The sculptures in the building we entered were of relatively late date, perhaps 2 million years ago, as checked up by geological, biological, and astronomical features, and embodied an art which would be called decadent in comparison with that of the specimens we found in the older buildings after crossing bridges under the glacial sheet. One edifice honed older buildings after crossing bridges under the glacial sheet. One evidence hewn from the solid rock seemed to go back 40 or possibly even 50 million years to the lower Eocene or Upper Cretaceous, and contained bas-reliefs of an artistry surpassing anything else, with one tremendous exception that we encountered. That was, we have since agreed, the oldest domestic structure we have traversed. Were it not for the support of those flashlights soon be made public, I would refrain from telling what I found and inferred, lest I be confined as a madman. Of course, the infinitely early parts of the patchwork tale, representing the pre-terrestrial life of the star-headed beings on other planets, and in other galaxies and other universes, can be readily interpreted as the fantastic mythology of those beings themselves. Yet such parts sometimes involve designs and diagrams so uncannily close to the late findings of mathematics and astrophysics that I scarcely know what to think. Let others judge what they see the photographs I shall publish. Naturally, no one set of carvings which we encountered told more of a fraction than any connected story, nor did we even begin to come upon the various stages of that story in their proper order. Some of the vast rooms were independent units so far as their designs were concerned, yet in other cases a continuous chronicle would be carried through a series of rooms and corridors. The best of the maps and diagrams were on the walls of a frightful abyss below even the ancient ground level, a cavern perhaps 200 feet square and 60 feet high, which had almost undoubtedly been an educational center of some sort. There were many provoking repetitions of the same material. In some rooms and buildings, since certain chapters of existence and certain summaries or phases of racial history had evidently been favorites with different decorators or dwellers. Sometimes, though, variant versions of the same theme proved useful in settling debatable points and filling in gaps. I still wondered that we deduced so much in the short time at our disposal. Of course, we even now have only the barest outline, and much of that was obtained later on from a study of the photographs and sketches we made. It may be the effect of this later study that the revived memories and vague impressions and acting in conjunction with his general sensitiveness, and with that final supposed horror glimpse, whose essence he will not reveal even to me, which has been the immediate source of Van Forest's present breakdown. But it had to be, for we could not issue a warning or intelligently from without the fullest possible information. And the issuance of that warning is a prime necessity. Certain lingering influences in an unknown Antarctic world of disordered time and alien natural law make it imperative that further exploration be discouraged. Seven. The full story, so far as I've deciphered, will shortly appear in the official bulletin of the Miskatonic University. Here I shall sketch only the salient highlights in a formless, rambling way. Myth or otherwise, the sculptures told of a coming of those star-headed things to the nascent, lifeless Earth out of cosmic space. Their coming, and the coming of many other alien entities, such as at certain times embark upon spatial pioneering. They seem able to traverse the interstellar ether on their vast membranous wings, thus oddly confirming some curious hill folklore told me long ago by an antiquarian colleague. They had lived under the sea for a good deal, building fantastic cities and fighting terrific battles with nameless adversaries by means of intricate devices employing unknown principles of energy. Evidently, their scientific and mechanical knowledge far surpassed man's today, though we make use of its more widely spread in elaborate forms only when obliged to. Some of the sculptures suggested that they had passed through a stage of mechanized life on other planets, but had proceeded upon finding its effects emotionally unsatisfying. Their preternatural toughness of organization and simplicity of natural wants made them peculiarly able to live on a high plane without the more specialized fruits of artificial manufacture, and even without the garments, except for occasional protection against the elements. It was under the sea, at first, for food and later for other purposes, that they first created Earth life, using available substances according to long-known methods. The more elaborate experiments came from after an annihilation of various cosmic enemies. They had done the same thing on other planets, having manufactured not only necessary foods, but certain multicellular protoplasmic masses capable of molding their tissues into all sorts of temporary organs under hypnotic influence, and thereby forming ideal slaves to perform the heavy work of the community. These vicious masses were without doubt what Abdul al-Hazarad whispered about as the quote-unquote Shoggoths in his frightful Necronomicon. Though even that mad Arab had not hinted at any existed on Earth, except in the dreams of those who had chewed a certain alkaloidal herb. When the star-headed Old Ones on this planet had synthesized their simple food forms and bred a good supply of Shoggoths, they allowed other cell groups to develop into other forms of animal and vegetable life for sundry purposes, extirpating any whose presence became troublesome. With the aid of the Shoggoths, whose expansions could be made to lift prodigious weights, the small, low cities under the sea grew to vast and imposing labyrinths of stone not unlike those which later rose on land. Indeed, the highly adaptable Old Ones had lived much on land in other parts of the universe, and probably retained many traditions of land construction. As we studied the architecture of all these sculptured Paleolithic cities, including that whose eon-dead corridors were even then traversing, we were impressed by the curious coincidence which we had not yet tried to explain, even to ourselves. The tops of the buildings, which in the actual city around us had, of course, been weathered into shapeless ruins ages ago, were clearly displayed in the bas-reliefs and showed vast clusters of needle-like spires. Delicate finials on certain cone and pyramid apexes, and tiers of thin horizontal scalloped discs caping cylindrical shafts. This was exactly what we had seen in that monstrous and portentous mirage cast by Dead City, whence such skyline features have been absent for thousands and tens of thousands of years, which loomed on our ignorant eyes across the unfathomed mountains of madness as we first approached poor Lake's ill-fated camp. Of the life of the Old Ones, both under the sea and after the part of them migrated to land, volumes could be written. Those in shallow water had continued the fullest use of the eyes at the ends of their 5 main head tentacles, and had practiced the art of sculpture and of writing in quite the usual way. The writing had accomplished with a stylus on waterproof waxen surfaces. Those lower in the ocean depths, though they used a curious phosphorescent organism to furnish light, pieced out their vision with obscure special senses operating through the priasmic cilia on their heads, senses which rendered all the Old Ones partly independent of light in emergencies. Their forms of sculpture and writing had changed curiously during the descent, embodying certain apparently chemicals coating processes, probably to secure phosphorescence, which the bas-reliefs could not make clear to us. The beings moved in the sea partly by swimming, using the lateral crinoid arms, and partly by wriggling with the lower tier of tentacles containing the pseudofeet. Occasionally they accomplish long swoops with auxiliary use of 2 or more sets of their fan-like folding wings. On land they locally used the pseudofeet, but now and then flew to great heights or long distance with their wings.